You want to know how favoritism ruins a family? Let me give you the headline. I was 20 years old when I realized my parents worshipped the so-called golden child, my twin brother, while my twin sister was left to fade into the background. Helping her find a job after graduation sparked jealousy, and that jealousy uncovered something darker, a college trust fund drained for his trophies. My sister found her voice at graduation, and what followed was messy, raw, and honest. We confronted our parents, we chose independence over approval, and together we built a life where love no longer came with a receipt. That's the story I'm about to tell you, and it begins right here. She's 18 years old and still expects the world to clap. That is what I yelled at my mother in our kitchen while the chicken tikka simmered into a scorched mess. If you want someone to hand your golden boy a crown, order one from Amazon. I am done. Me, female, 20 years old, older sister. Younger siblings, twins, 18 years old, Jay and Yes. In our house, Jay could sneeze on a math test and be praised as a visionary. Jess was the afterthought, quiet, careful, the girl who learned to make herself small to avoid being told she was too much. I know because I used to be her shadow. I also know how this ends. I help Jess find a job, Dad calls it meddling, Mom cries, Jay sulks, and somehow I am the villain again. Spoiler alert, by the end of this, you will either call me stubborn or survival smart. I am fine with both. He didn't cheat, he built a double life, someone once said about marriages. In my family, favoritism was that double life, love with an invoice tucked inside. You want the quick headline? In 3 months, Jess and I will pack her thrift store suitcases into my dented Honda, leave our parents' split level in Tacoma behind, and drive toward a campus where no one knows who the golden child is. But before we get that soft ending, there is the part where I find out a secret about money that rewrites our whole childhood. The part where Jay tries to weaponize a job hunt, and the moment at graduation where Jess stops being a prop and becomes a person with a microphone and a spine. Right after the kitchen fight, my roommate Maya texted, "Do I pick up ice cream or boxing gloves?" I typed back, "Both," then added, "Bring napkins. I burn dinner." The smell of cardamom and smoke clung to the curtains as Mom shouted up the stairs, "We take care of all our kids equally." Jess, sitting on the top step with her arms around her knees, laughed without smiling. "Sure," she whispered, "equally invisible." Favoritism is love with a price tag. That is the line that kept looping in my head as the smoke alarm chirped, the neighbor's wind chimes clinked, and I held my breath, waiting for someone, anyone, to admit what we all knew. And then Jay texted me, "You should help me find work in San Francisco, like you're doing for her." That message is where this whole mess began, and it is where it almost ended. Growing up, I was the favorite grandchild on both sides strictly because I arrived first. Aunts sent me glittery cards taped with cash. Grandparents kept my terrible finger paintings on their fridge like museum exhibits. Jay and Jess came 2 years later. Our parents had wanted a son and a daughter, but not like this. 2 at once made Mom's eyes go strange. She doted on Jay as if she could pour all her unlived dreams into him like gasoline into a race car. Private soccer coaches, robotics camp, gifted testing. With Jess, Mom clucked about moods and attitude, then offered her a coupon for a hair trim and a lecture on gratitude. At school events, the unfairness leapt out like a neon sign. When Jay had a soccer final and Jess had an orchestra concert on the same evening, guess which one got the whole family? I started showing up for Jess, blaring Glee soundtracks as we drove to her middle school gym that smelled like old rubber and orange slices, cheering for her like she had invented the violin. It began as pity, but turned into preference. Jess listened, remembered, said thank you. Jay expected. By high school, my friend circle, Maya, who is 29 years old and acts like everyone's exhausted aunt, and Diego, 21 years old, king of the thrift store flannel, adopted Jess. We took her skating under string lights that hummed in winter, brought her to indie movies where the projector clicked like a heartbeat, sat through her spring concert munching stale Twizzlers. Maya would clap like Jess had just cured a disease. Afterward, we would grab greasy dumplings from the late-night strip mall where soy sauce stained our sleeves and we laughed too loudly. Jess started calling them her found siblings. She said it like it was a secret. maybe it was. College acceptances arrived in thick envelopes and thin emails that we pretended did not matter. Jay chose a shiny program in San Francisco. Mom and Dad paid the deposit so fast the website probably got whiplash. Jess chose a state school near Seattle, my campus, different side of the city, bus line away. She got a full ride because apparently being perpetually underestimated turns you into a workhorse. Mom said, "Wonderful, less pressure on us." Less pressure is a nice way of saying no spending money, no safety net, no room for error. Jess did not complain. She just asked if I knew anyone hiring part-time in the fall. We FaceTimed on a Thursday night. She sat cross-legged on her carpet, a stack of worn poetry books behind her, a string of origami stars fading above her head. I told her we would find something that did not eat her soul, nothing that required smiling at rude people for 8 hours straight, something where she could study on the clock without lying about it. She exhaled so hard the camera trembled. I made calls. I scrolled my campus job board while eating cold pizza that tasted like cardboard and nostalgia. I texted Maya, "Know any profs hiring assistants?" She sent 3 names and a gossip rundown for each. I told Jess to send me her resume. I would help with the wording. We signed off just before midnight, the house quiet except for the dishwasher's sleepy hiss. The next morning, Jay's text landed like a slap. "You should help me find work in San Francisco, like you're doing for her." I typed, "I do not know anyone there. Ask Mom and Dad, they know people. Also, you get an allowance." I hit send. Dots appeared. Disappeared. Then, "So you are favoring her." "Probably," I wrote. "I like her." Then I added, because it was true and because I was tired of pretending, "She treats me like a person." Maya says people show you who they are in the way they ask for help. Jay does not ask. He demands with the softness of a sledgehammer. When he told Mom that I was favoring Jess, he meant I was breaking the family choreography. In our house, love went to Jay, patience was saved for later, and Jess sat at the edge of every photo, cropped out by accident and design. "Is it wrong to stop seeking parental approval?" I asked Maya as we sat at a cafe with sticky tables and the smell of burned espresso grinding up my mood. She raised one eyebrow like a slow curtain. "Not when the price of approval is pretending you do not see what you see." Her spoon clicked against a chipped mug. "Also, there is the small detail that you literally cannot conjure a job market in a city you do not live in." "Would you forgive parents for obvious favoritism?" I muttered, more to the steam than to her. The question clung to the air like latte foam. Maya's story is my favorite proof that people can change, even if families do not. She, the oldest of 3, told me once how her parents paid for her sister's private college and ran out for the youngest. How she covered her brother's tuition in chunks, then insisted everyone stop telling him what to be. He wanted to paint murals, she said, laughing. Now he runs a fabrication studio and has employees. The teacher who called me Mary's sister once, I almost cried from pride. Her voice shook with the memory. When she told me that, I pictured Jess standing under a banner that read Jess's sister and felt this deep tectonic shift under my feet. Jess texted me a screenshot of a message from Jay. "I need your contact at the museum." She typed beneath it, "He thinks museums are ATMs." I replied with a string of very mature eye-roll emojis and then sent her the listings I had found. There was a lab assistant job where the air always smelled faintly like alcohol wipes, a library shift that fit between her Monday and Wednesday lectures, and an opening with Maya's friend who ran a community arts nonprofit that paid with tiny checks and big hugs. That night, Dad cornered me while he chopped onions for his famous biryani, the kitchen bright with the metallic clack of his favorite knife, the scent of cinnamon and hot oil filling my lungs. "Your brother says you are turning your sister against us," he said, and he did not look at me when he said it. "We support all of you, equally." "Do you?" I asked. Something sharp and old lifted its head inside me. "Would you rather I pretend you do?" He sighed, wiped his hands on a towel with tiny embroidered lemons, then said, "In this house, we do not keep score." I laughed.
In this house, you built the scoreboard. The twist came in a brown accordion folder that smelled like dust and lemon-scented pledge. I was looking for my birth certificate because I needed it to renew my passport for a study abroad application that I may or may not have the guts to submit. The folder lived on the top shelf of Dad's office closet, between tax returns that weighed more than my cat and a stack of old sheet music from when Mom thought she would be a pianist. Inside the folder, a page fluttered loose. A bank statement from 10 years ago. Thick paper, unfamiliar logo. Granddad's College Trust, it read at the top. 3 beneficiaries. Me, Jay, Jess. 3 starting balances. Equal. 3 current balances. Not equal.
My heart thudded in my ears like running feet. Jay's share, nearly intact, minus a handful of debits labeled tuition deposit, camp robotics, club soccer travel. My share, mostly intact, used for a first laptop and a snoozy summer program I had begged for in 8th grade because it was at a college and felt fancy. Jess's share pulled like taffy into nothing, drained in small bites for things that were never hers: pageant dresses, private goalie coaching, competition fees that only one twin needed. An old anger returned with a new name: theft. I put the statement back, then yanked it out again because the paper felt like a witness. I took a picture. My hands shook so badly I took 3, and in one my thumb blotted out Jess. I sent the clearest one to Maya with 3 words: I found it. Her response came fast. You okay? No, I was not. The knowledge made my fingers tingle like they had fallen asleep. It made the refrigerator hum too loud. It made the lemon towel on the oven handle look like a joke. They cashed her future to buy his trophies, I typed. My throat tightened around the taste of copper. What do I do? Maya called. Her voice was calm and low like good radio. First, breathe. Second, screenshot in a cloud you control. Third, tell Jess when she is not alone. She paused. Fourth, decide if you want to burn this down or rebuild something after you show them the match. I sat on the floor in front of the oven, cool tile against my knees, the smell of cumin still clinging to the air, and whispered, "Is it better to be right or be kind?" A stupid question in a not stupid moment, but it was the only one my mind could hold without shattering. We told Jess 2 nights later in Maya's living room, where the couch springs squeaked and the candles smelled like fake vanilla. Diego made tea that tasted like sad grass, but we drank it anyway because hands needed something to hold. I handed Jess my phone. She scrolled. Her face did not move except for the smallest twitch under her left eye. She said, very quietly, "So, that is why," and did not finish. But I knew the list. Why there was never money for her soccer cleats, why her orchestra instrument was always the school loaner with the warped bridge, why every time she asked to take a summer class, she was told, "We will see." "We will see" means no, but slower. I watched Jess become the person she would be at 30, precise, decisive, unfamiliar with being appeased. "We need to talk to them," she said. "All of us. No triangulating." Her voice does not wobble. She looked at me with eyes that had stopped making themselves smaller. "You come with me," she added. It was not a request. Maya, because she cannot help herself, offered context even in emergencies. When parents pick favorites, they train the rest of you to compete for rations, she said, hands wrapped around her mug. But sometimes the golden child is just a kid with a crown he did not make. Sometimes he is also a jerk. She glanced at Jess. You get to decide which story fits your brother. Jess nodded slowly, then surprised all of us. Should I protect my sibling even if parents do not? She said out loud, as if she were testing the weight of the words in her mouth. Or am I done? I wanted to answer for her, but I did not. She had a right to marry her own conviction. We scheduled a family talk for the morning after graduation, which was petty and perfect. Meanwhile, senior week answered one question we hadn't asked. At a backyard party that smelled like sunscreen and overcooked burgers, Jay cornered me by the folding table where potato salad sweated in a plastic bowl. "You made Jess think she is owed something," he said.
His eyes were glossy, like a person halfway between belief and panic. That money, I needed it for opportunities. And she needed shoes that fit, I said. You always take her side, he shot back. I take the side of mathematics, I said. 3 accounts meant to be equal. 1 is empty. Explain it like a robotics problem. He hissed, "You are jealous," which is the thing people say when they cannot compute simple fairness. Then he walked away, grabbed a cupcake, and took a bite so large the frosting smeared ridiculous across his cheek. I watched him wipe it with the back of his hand like a petulant toddler. Somewhere, a speaker started blasting a song that made my teeth hurt. My phone buzzed. Jess, ready to stop whispering? Me, yes. Graduation day was June wind on our skin, those stiff polyester gowns that trapped body heat, the smell of hot rubber from bleachers baking under a noon sun. I sat with Maya and Diego far enough from our parents that I could ignore Dad's performative clapping and Mom's humming fretfulness. Jay walked across the stage to a roar. Jess's row filed up, and for a second I worried her name would get swallowed. It did not. A cluster of her orchestra friends stood and screamed, and I screamed, and Maya whistled like a construction worker, and Jess's smile was like a sunrise you did not see coming.
At the after party in our backyard, cheek bunting flapping, watermelon sweating in a bowl, Auntie Priya talking too loudly about the neighbor's divorce, Jess climbed onto the little wooden deck and tapped a spoon against a mason jar. "I just want to say something," she began. I saw Mom stiffen. I saw Dad glance at Jay. I saw Jay look bored, like a prince enduring peasant speeches. Jess kept her voice low. "Thank you to the people who showed up for me," she said, and her eyes flicked to me, to Maya, to Diego. "And to my parents," she turned then, and they flushed, thinking praise was coming. "I found out about the college accounts." The backyard stole in a breath. "Granddad set it up equally. Mine is empty. I know where it went." A soda can hissed open somewhere in the stunned quiet. A fly buzzed against the screen door like it had a point to prove. Jess continued, "I am not angry anymore." She swallowed. "Well, that is a lie. I am angry. But I am not confused. I am done asking for permission to exist." She looked straight at Jay. "You can keep your trophies. I am keeping my self-respect." Mom sputtered something about sacrifice. Dad began a sentence with, "You do not understand finances," and Jay said, "You are making a scene." Jess lifted the mason jar and clinked it gently against the deck railing. "The scene was made for me," she said. Then she stepped down and hugged me so tightly the edges of my world lined up. Auntie Priya started to clap. It sounded wrong and right at once. The family talk the next morning began with everyone on their worst behavior. Mom brought out a tray of tea as if calories could fix theft. Dad wore his accountant face, which he uses when he wants something complicated to feel inevitable. Jay sat on the couch with his arms crossed, his phone face down like a hostage. Jess laid the printed bank statement on the coffee table. "Explain this." Dad launched into a speech about opportunity density and return on investment, phrases that do not belong in a living room with a crocheted blanket. "We used some of the funds to maximize Jay's potential," he said, and Mom added, "It was always the plan to refill yours. Time got away." "Time got away for a decade?" I said. Jay muttered, "We all benefited from my wins," which is the kind of sentence that makes sense only to the person who got the wins. Jess, who used to swallow words, did not swallow this. "You know what I would have benefited from?" she said. "Not having to line my sneakers with duct tape." Silence fell like a heavy curtain. The neighbor's lawnmower droned through it. I looked at Jess and realized something. She did not need me to translate anymore. She needed me to stand there and not flinch. So I did. I told Dad, "You do not get to call theft parenting." I told Mom, "You taught us that love is conditional on applause." Then I turned to Jay. "You can still be my brother," I said, and it was the hardest sentence I have ever spoken. "But you cannot pretend not to see who paid your tab." Jay's face crumpled for half a second, then smoothed. He is good at smoothing.
Is choosing peace over family the right call? Dad said to no one, like the room itself might answer. I heard the words and felt that old ache to comfort him. Then I imagined Jess's duct-taped shoes, and my spine held. There was no clean agreement, no group hug, no piano music. Families like ours do not dissolve in one meeting. They calcify and crack slowly. But Mom said, small as a pin, "We will pay Jess's rent for a year. We owe her that." Dad nodded, twice. Jay did not speak. Later, in Maya's car that always smells like peppermint gum and old coffee, Jess stared out the window and asked, "Is it wrong to stop seeking parental approval?" I told her she had just built her own approval meter. "Install batteries," I said. We laughed harder than the joke deserved, and it felt like blood flow returning to a numb limb. August spread out like a new notebook. Jess and I hunted for a cheap studio we could turn into a sibling bunker. The place we found had peeling paint the color of a bad banana and a view of a brick wall, but the landlord smiled with his eyes and let us keep our houseplants. We scrubbed the kitchen until the lemon cleaner smell made us both high. We dragged a free couch up the stairs while Diego shouted, "Pivot," in a voice that must have annoyed our ancestors. We ate Thai on the floor, basil and chili fogging the room, and planned how to make a life that did not require permission slips. Jess took the lab assistant job. The first week, she texted me a picture of her new badge, grainy, her hair in chaos, her grin wider than sky. I taped it on our fridge under a magnet shaped like a tiny avocado. It made our chipped appliances look like they belonged in someone else's fancier life.
Jay texted occasionally with strange, clipped updates. "Got an internship," he wrote once. No emoji, no details. Another time, "Mom says you are not visiting." He did not ask how Jess was. He did not apologize. In the silence between his sentences, I heard the echo of a boy who had never needed to learn the notes of humility. Every Sunday, Maya came by with groceries no one asked her to buy, a loaf of bread that crackled like a campfire when we tore into it, peaches that dripped down our wrists, a carton of eggs from a farmer who probably named his chickens. "I am not your mother," she would say, which is the kindest thing she could possibly mean. Then she would remind me to apply for study abroad. She is relentless like that. One night, I asked Jess, "Should I protect my sibling even if parents do not?" I meant Jay. I meant me. I meant all of us. Jess considered it the way she considers recipes, as if she can see the chemistry behind the taste. "Protecting someone is not the same as excusing them," she said. "I will not let them starve. I will not watch them steal." We made a list on the back of a grocery receipt because every story is a collection of lists in disguise. Our list read, rent paid on time, call grandma twice a month, say no when the body says no, help where we can, keep receipt photos, buy duct tape for moving, not for shoes, dance in the kitchen when the rice cooker clicks. It was not a constitution, but it was close. In late September, Jess and I stood at the bus stop with a paper bag of still warm empanadas, the street damp after a drizzle, the air smelling like wet leaves and new beginnings. The bus roared up, diesel and brake dust. We boarded, found a seat near the back. A kid in a hoodie snored softly 2 rows ahead. A woman hummed next to a window etched with tiny scratches that looked like a city map. Jess squeezed my hand, a quick pulse. "Do you ever get tired of being strong?" she asked. "All the time," I said. She rested her head on my shoulder in a way that felt like punctuation, not neediness. "Do you think favoritism breaks families permanently?" she asked after a while, voice low enough that only the seat heard. I watched the city slide by, murals layered with more murals, a bakery where the morning line always bends around the block, a thrift store with velvet dresses that smell like old closets. "I think it tries to," I said. "I think we get to decide if it succeeds." When we got home, the answering machine, yes, I own one, do not laugh, blinked. Mom's voice poured out, thin and brittle. "I miss you girls," she said, forgetting that only one of us is a girl. "Let us have dinner. Sunday?" Jess looked at me. I looked at the blinking red light. "Is it better to be right or be kind?" I repeated. She rolled her eyes. "Both, if we can manage it," she said, then added, "kind without lying."
We texted back, Sunday, but not at the house, neutral territory. We chose a diner that smelled like bacon grease and fresh coffee, where the waitress calls everyone hun and wears blue eyeliner like armor. Sunday came. Mom held my hand too long. Dad tried small talk, failed. Jay did not show. We ordered pancakes the size of steering wheels. Jess told them about her lab job with a steady joy that made Mom dab her eyes with a napkin. Dad said he was proud, which cost him nothing and meant something anyway. It was painfully normal, the way people act after a storm when they are pretending to look at the rainbow and not the uprooted trees. We paid separately, we hugged, we left. Back at home, Jess flopped onto the couch and kicked off her shoes. The room smelled like the basil plant on the windowsill and the lemon cleaner we keep overusing. Is it wrong to stop seeking parental approval? She asked one last time, smiling because she already knew. We stopped, I said. They can offer it or not. We are not applying. Then this is the part where you ask the internet for advice, she teased. And I laughed because she is right. I grew up on confessional posts and smart strangers. So tell me, invisible audience in my head, is it better to be right or be kind? And if you must pick, which one saves you? Jess reached over, flicked my forehead with the gentlest insult, and said, "You chose me. That was both." For the first time in a long time, I believed that love without a price tag might be the version we get to keep.